The general aspiration of a land environment is limited to a finite amount of resources, but also generates survival of the living kinds. The continuous increase in demand in land properties has been continuously rising due to the consistent rise in the human population, resulting in decreased land quality and quantity, competition for land, and a decline in crop production. Land resources also refer to the Earth's terrestrial surface that includes all the attributes of the biosphere. The cycles such as sedimentary and phosphorus exist and is visible in the vicinity of any land environment. Hence, the usage of these materials is mainly consumed by invasive species.
Globalization allowed us to have an opportunity for an open and convenient trade system, transport, travel, and tourism, wherein all of which can enable the introduction and outspread of species that are not native to a place. An invasive species are organisms that become overpopulated and negatively affect the ecosystem of its new environment. They can also alter habitats and bioregions, induce the extinctions of native plants, and reduce biodiversity that can lead to ecological and economic damage. Examples of invasive species are purple sea urchin, European crab, sea walnut, feral pigs, and killer algae. Human activities mainly disperse invasive species. They both serve as an incidental and deliberate dispersal mechanism for spreading these species. Moreover, in the 21st century, invasive species has become a severe social, environment, and economic threat.
A sedimentary cycle is defined as the weathering of an existing rock followed by mineral erosion, transport, deposition, and burial. Minerals and rock fragments in first cycle sediments are less resistant. The less resistant minerals will be removed or changed to more stable products if this material is processed a second time. The more sedimentary cycles a sediment has gone through, the more mature it will become. On the other hand, phosphorus travels through rocks, water, soil, sediments, and organisms in a cycle. The phosphorus cycle is the natural flow of phosphorus in various forms through the Earth's surface. Phosphorus is one of the most limited elements recycled in the biosphere. It is also essential to life because it is involved in all cells or DNA and energy transfer as well as the transmission of genetic information.
Invasive plants impact plant communities through direct and indirect effects on soil chemistry and ecosystem function, considering the sedimentary and phosphorus cycle. For example, in the sedimentary cycle, plants modify the soil environment through root exudates that affect soil structure and mobilize or chelate nutrients. These can also lead to change in soil nutrient pools and alteration of nutrient cycles differently from native species. On the other hand, the phosphorus cycle also intersects with another big ecological problem with invasive species. Some examples of it are the zebra mussels and quagga mussels. The mussels compete with the fish for phytoplankton, which has decreased fish populations, especially in the offshore zones. They metabolize phosphorus, lowering the overall concentration in the water. This relationship upends the impact of phosphorus in the lakes, creating adverse effects on the overall cycle of phosphorus.
A sedimentary cycle is a phosphorus cycle, and with that, they are both affected by these anthropogenic effects. Phosphorus does not directly impact the environment, but it does have an indirect impact by fertilizing plants, which increases carbon sinks. Sulfur dioxide emissions can slow plant growth and stimulate the loss of soil nutrients that plants require due to various human activities, such as fertilizer usage, food product distribution, and intentional eutrophication. Artificial or anthropogenic eutrophication occurs when food is transported from fields to cities and large amounts of phosphorus are dumped into the water system. The oversupply of plant nutrients causes algae to develop excessively when phosphorus levels are too high.
Epigenetics. Such term is often associated with genetics, but it should, while simultaneously showing its importance since epigenetics follows a certain function that brings light to understand how important our gene plays in everyone's health. But before delving on the matter, we can start with the denotative meaning of epigenetics. Epigenetics is a study in how both the environment and behavior can cause changes in our gene function. In contrast with genetic changes that are often irreversible, epigenetic ones are and does not change one's DNA sequence. Rather, it can change our body reaction when reading a DNA sequence. Knowing the relation of epigenetics and environment, let us understand the type of epigenetic changes which affects the gene expression. These three are DNA methylation, histone modification, and non-coding RNA. These are the definition as seen on the screen. Not only does epigenetic change with the environment and behavior, but with time pertaining to age as part of normal development and the varying responses existing within the change in behavior environment. The first one is epigenetics and development, which we have an example of nerve muscles versus muscle cell. Second, epigenetic and age, study of newborn versus 26-year-old versus 100 years old. And the third is epigenetic and reversibility, which smokers versus non-smokers versus former smokers that are often the indication of an example for it. Some of the concern with epigenetic affects an individual's health, which is why it can cause the following: infections caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, cancer, colorectal cancer, and by history, nutrition during pregnancy, like what happened in Dutch hunger winter famine in 1944 to 1955. Other factors for epigenetic changes are lifestyle factors like diet, obesity, physical activity, alcohol consumption, and mental stability brought by environmental stressors. Some are overpopulation, pollution, and deforestation. These are the ones with the sudden or gradual change will bring consequences to the environment, which can affect how one behaves, and in turn affects our epigenetics.
Preventing invasive species from appearing in the first place is the most effective strategy to combat them. You can start by simply checking to see if the plants you're buying for your garden or yard are invasive. You may opt for natural plants like deep-rooted wildflowers, ornaments, grasses, shrubs, or trees along the shoreline or stream banks instead of turf grass. These plants collect and filter runoff containing nutrients and soil and provide animal habitat. Thus, avoid releasing plants, live bait, and other exotic creature into the wild. If you want to keep an exotic pet, do your homework and prepare ahead of time to ensure that you can take care of it. It is vital that you have enough knowledge to practice helping and protecting the environment and encouraging the people around you to do the same.
To conclude, we have discussed what invasive species are and the anthropogenic effects, as well as how the sedimentary and phosphorus cycle is affected by these. We must be mindful of what we are doing. Lastly, to answer the questions, are humans invasive? Yes, indeed we are, but we can still correct our mistakes. This is our call.